I don't know. I guess I probably would have to share my screen. I do have a face for radio. Yeah, I've only ever done this through OBS. I assumed I was going to have to start OBS first and then start up StreamYard. So, but I think I can work everything through here. Yeah, hopefully. I didn't want to blast your ears, but yeah, I can't see the volume stuff that I normally got with OBS. Oh, and I need to share the link, don't I? I'm guessing I just oh, invite. There we go. Okay. Welcome, welcome.
What's up, brother Yahoo? I like that Babylon sign. Babylon has fallen.
Yeah, this is Joseph Israel. He got taken with some cancer a couple years ago, but I just love his music, and it's not copyrighted, so might as well throw it out there for somebody to enjoy. It actually makes you do one of those like age things, or like this is dangerous content, or somebody flagged it for something. You actually got to like
Oh,
click an I
yeah.
agree to listen to it because it's talking about Babylon. So yeah. Should be able to just yep, right on over. So yeah, like this Ezekiel is so very literal to me. I don't know how to take it any other way. Um, I I guess in my view, the greater Exodus, the second Exodus, whatever you want to call it, happens like up until his coming, and then whenever he actually comes, and he comes down with a shout and sends his angels to gather everybody from the four corners of the earth. Like I think that's like the end of the greater Exodus, if you will. So I think all this stuff happens like up till he comes. Because yeah, then he gathers us together and brings us into the wilderness of the people, enter into judgment with you face to face, as I entered into judgment in the wilderness of Egypt, make you pass under the rod, purge the rebels, like separate the sheep from the goats, um, from the land where they sojourn, I bring them out, but they shall not come into the land of Israel. Um,
Well, where are they going to?
they're going to Israel for sure,
So
but
how come it says it? What'd you just say there? He didn't. But you
yeah,
won't.
the rebels will get the rebels will get brought out of their Gentile nation, but they'll get killed off before they enter
Oh,
into Israel.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
Just like the first time. Purge out all the rebels, and then we get to, my set apart mountain, which, I think you would argue would be Zion. Require your offerings, first fruits, offerings, and all the set apart gifts. I shall be set apart in you in front of the nations. Um, you shall remember your ways and all your deeds with which you were defiled, and you shall loathe yourselves in your own sight because of all the evils that you did. That is an excellent, excellent verse. So yeah, like, and there's a whole lot of other places. I just think this one's the most literal, and even more so because it talks about, in the same manner that I did it the first time, I'm going to do it again. And there's Isaiah talks about like the pillar of smoke and fire. Jeremiah talks about it. Yeah, and I would say that Zechariah also talks about it. But as far as like the actual like terminology, I know Jeremiah 16 has it. It's one of my favorite chapters. I passed it. Therefore, see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when it is no longer said, Yahuwah lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of Egypt, but Yahuwah lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands where he has driven them. For I shall bring them back into their land I gave to their fathers. And so I don't see the Israel we have today being this, because if you search out all of the verses, surrounding this event, it's talking about the land getting cleansed, all of the idols and detestable things getting, torn down and taken out of the land, and it'll basically be cleaned forever. And I think that we could all agree that the land is not clean at the moment. So I don't see this as happening. I could maybe see, like a first spiritual sort of fulfillment, but I don't think it's come to its full fulfillment yet. I don't know. What do you
Well,
think?
my personal. I mean, I don't know anybody else that believes this, but my personal is that that 16:16 there. First, see, I am sending for many fishermen. That's the apostles.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I would go for that.
and then the next one is hunters. That's 1900 years later. That to me is the Nazis. They hunted them out of every. These are non-believers. So he
Mm-hmm.
came to the house. You know what I mean? If Jesus came to the lost, and he's saying, "I'm going to bring you fishers first," and he told the apostles, "Go to the lost." Well, you know what I
Yeah.
mean. At first, he said,
You're
"Go to the
fishers
lost."
of men.
Right? Yeah, fish make you fit. But at his ascension, he said, "Go throughout all the world." But initially, they came for the lost, and yes, so these hunters are also going to be sent for the lost. These guys never believed in the Messiah, so the Nazis, who I don't know if you've seen. That Nazi guy, the neo-Nazi, fighting for Ukraine, bragging about how important the neo-Nazis are to the service of Ukraine against Russia. But he said, we are only 8% of the force, but we are killers. We love killing. He's bragging on how much of a hunter these Nazis are.
Right.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, they were hunting at the time Jews, but these hunters are not. A Nazi is not a natural born enemy to the Jewish nation. A pagan sun god would be. So I see this in World War II with the 10 years of concentration camps. We're just in the. I think I'm await me personally. Like I say, I'm the only one that believes this. I'm awaiting the seventh thunder. I think six thunders have already happened with in World War II was the tribulation that everybody's afraid of oh, are you pre-trib or mid-trib or post-trib, pre-wrath, post-wrath? I think I think the trib was World War II. I don't know. I understand Jesus is not returned yet, but I also understand that Israel was cannot be born in a day. You know, it says, can a nation be born in a day? And it's like, ooh, Israel was born in a day in 1948. Well,
Right.
so was the United States on July 4th, but we still had to fight for years afterwards. And the same with Israel. They still had to fight for years afterwards, and their current boundaries are not the boundaries that God gave them. So maybe we have to wait for that. I'm just saying, a lot of people see future a thermonuclear war. They think World War III. Oh, there's going to be blood up to the horses' bridles. It's like, dude, that happened in World War One, when the horses were in the trenches with us, and the blood was. It's not like there was a river of blood up to the horses' bridles. It's like the horses were in on the deal, and there was blood everywhere. And I just see all that happen. Hitler. I mean, didn't he mock God Almighty by saying his Third Reich would be 1,000-year reign? Aren't we looking for the millennial, the 1,000-year reign of Jesus? And here this Hitler guy says, I'm going to do a system that's going to last for 1,000 years. It's just clear to me that so many things have happened already, and people just kind of quiver in their boots and say, oh, am I going to be part of the trib, or am I going to be raptured? It's like, dude, why do you even think they were talking about you? A good Calvin Christian who eats the Eucharist and drinks blood. What makes you think they're talking about you in the Bible? I just Zechariah's thermonuclear war. Have you ever seen that with
No.
Rude? Oh my gosh, it's genius. It's not like there's going to be, and he incorrectly reads it wrong. Like there's going to be a thermonuclear war in the future. But if we read it,
Yeah, I
Zechariah,
wasn't.
there's only
Oh, sorry.
two. There's only two nuclear bombs in Zechariah 9, and that already happened at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So, gosh, these future events, when people start talking about, oh, I just don't want to get off on my little personal thing,
No, I think it's interesting. I haven't heard anyone talk like this before, and
yeah,
I don't want to
I
pretend
wouldn't
like I'm
ban
right.
them.
I'm just going to tell
Yeah,
you, like, I read it really literal. This is how I see it, but I love
exactly.
discussing these ideas with other people because, I think that we should, like, if you can't entertain other ideas, then you think you're right. You probably got a lot of pride in you. So, I
Oh,
think that,
and then all it will take is somebody that will pull up a verse from Proverbs that says something like, "Hey, Mike, you're not even close to being right on this. I will retract. I will back down. I will readjust my position. I will rethink." You know what
right.
I mean? I'm
Yeah, I
open.
would much rather be wrong now than later. That is
Yeah,
for
and hang your hat on something for years, and then you get to a point and somebody says, "Well, no, Mike, didn't you read Genesis 49:11,
right.
where the scepter will not depart from?" Oh, and then I'm all screwed on my principles. Oh, but I'm going to stick to it just to spite myself because I spent so many years on it, and my mom was a Baptist, and my great grandfather was a Baptist, and oh, I'm going to stick to my gun. No, man, just relax, and find out the truth and accept it.
Yeah, no, this to me, like what we're doing now, I mean, this is like, Feast of Tabernacle stuff. Like I was the guy that was hanging out at campfires till 4 in the morning, just having all sorts of conversations because, you can't always do it whenever you believe like we do and there's not believers around.
Oh, even I think even at the campfires, you have to be like they've got their rules. Oh, be quiet. Put the campfire out at midnight. Oh, don't do this. So I'm
I
glad
mean,
you had to
oh
get it
man, like
done.
the campground we were at, the quiet time was at 10, but you didn't have to go to bed. And it was
Oh,
just, like, don't you basically just had to watch yourself whenever you got passionate and started raising your voices, but you could still sit at the campfire and talk. So,
yeah.
and I mean, like, as as stupid as that sounds, it really is a great place. It's a private place. They give us a really, really good deal that, we just could not be able to get somewhere else. And, so yeah, I really don't have any complaints. They're really good people. I've been there the past 3 years, and I think the ministry's been there like the last 4 years. I think I missed the first year, but
I
like
did,
I've been there so much that I recognize the faces that don't show up. Like not
oh,
just the ones, not just the ones that are new. You know what I mean? So,
interesting.
but yeah,
No,
and
I
it's
did. I did
just
my.
great people. You can go up to any campfire and strike up a conversation, and yeah, it's good.
I did my first Sukkot. I did a couple years ago. A local campground here. I just pitched a tent, and there was 6 other tents that were already pitched there. And my name's Mike. 5 of those tents, the guys' names were Mike.
Oh my goodness.
And the first thing I learned was that tents, the walls of tents are paper thin, and you can hear everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't just mean like nasty stuff, but yeah, you can hear people breathing, not only snoring, but like breathing. Oh my, like
Yeah,
rolling over, on their little
yeah.
bubble wrap,
If you think you have brotherly love, spend 8 9 days camping
Uh-huh.
with every single member of your church so that you can hear them
Uh-huh.
breathe and cough and snore,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't get sleep, and then you have to wake up early in the morning. Like
In
that.
line at the
That
showers.
is true brotherly love. Whenever you can live in close quarters with people that you don't always agree with, or enjoy, whatever may be the case. But like, if you can't do it here, you're definitely not going to be able to do it in the kingdom.
But it was
Where
beautiful. I pitched my little tent. It was it's kind of adjacent to Offutt Air Force Base here in Omaha. So every night at 11 o'clock they'd play taps over the loudspeakers, and you could hear it. It was beautiful.
nice.
Um, oh yeah, but I tell you what, my first night
We had a
there.
trout alarm at 6:30, like a
Oh,
big
what
air
alarm?
raid siren. It's like we're near a trout farm, and so that like 6:30 in the morning and 6:30 in the evening, they've got a big air raid siren to signal like the start of the day and the end of the day for the trout fishing.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
crazy, man. I gotta hook that up for sundown. Okay, it's now the Sabbath.
right. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the campground we were staying at. It's just near enough that we can hear it.
Near there, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was
I
so
mean, I sleep through it.
my first night I went well, I pitched my tent or whatever and slept. It was just me, but I woke up the next morning to uh, uh, a woman on a what do you call those things where you yell at a person through a megaphone? Is that it? A megaphone?
Hmm.
Mic Microphone, megaphone.
Yeah, it's megaphone.
Yeah. I awoke to this chick. Come out with your hands up.
Oh my
Come
goodness.
out with your hands up. And I'm sleeping, and I'm like, what the heck? Is this real? Because I'm not a criminal, but I chill with the criminal element. And,
Right.
and maybe something came around back to me. I'm thinking in my head, what the heck crime did I commit? And finally I get up, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm at a campground. And I look over there, and it's this little girl walking, riding around on her little bicycle, and she's got like a play megaphone. I'm like,
Oh
oh
my.
my God, I about peed my pants, and it was just some little girl. Come
That's
out
great.
with your hands up.
That is fantastic.
Oh,
No. Did you go to Weewaka? It looked like you'd gone to Sukkot in what was it, Oklahoma?
oh no, I'm in Omaha. I can't go anywhere. I don't got any money.
Gotcha. I was looking through your videos. I didn't actually get to watch any of them yet, but I thought you had a Sukkot in Nebraska or something, or Oklahoma. But anyways, because yeah, I know Weewak is out in Oklahoma, so I wasn't sure if you went to that big one or not. But yeah,
Oh
that
yeah,
sounds way better than my first Sukkot. My first Sukkot, I found a local congregation that I thought was Torah observant. Turns out the guy was just racist, and I only got to go to like one, maybe two Sabbath meetings before we actually went to Sukkot. So I figured it out like in the middle of Sukkot. But thankfully, there was another family there and he had basically been raised in Torah, and he was like well into his 50s at this point. Um, his dad started out like in the Worldwide Church of God, like way on the West Coast, I think in like Oregon or Washington. And then they found the name and the Sabbath and the feast days, and like it split every time they found something new or whatever. But eventually, by the time his dad was old enough to have him, and he was old enough to like remember what was going on, they've been Torah observant, keeping the feast and the food laws and all that good stuff. So I got to meet him and his family, and they had a farm pretty close by. And so my family got to stay with them for an entire summer, and I just got to pick this dude's brain the entire summer. It was great.
Wow.
So that was kind of my introduction. And then we did, yeah, just like stuff in the backyard with friends and family for a couple of years until Steve Mutria came back from Costa Rica. And then we've been keeping the feast with him, or at least the Sukkot anyway, or Feast of Tabernacles.
Yeah,
and then
I haven't been with anybody ever doing any of the feasts. It's always just been me.
Man, that's rough. I feel for you, bro. I really do. I am so thankful that my mom and my best friend and two other friends that like weren't my best friends before. I knew them before, but I wasn't as close to them as I am now. But my mom and my best friend kind of came in with his wife, and then the other two guys, they're actually brothers, and then they both got married, and one of the wives was raised in Torah from like her teenage years, like 12 to 18 when she left the house or something like that. And then the one that married the oldest brother was into like New Age and all sorts of stuff, but then she started getting like sleep paralysis. And the other one was like, just straight up told her like, that's demon possession. If you want to figure out that kind of stuff, you just need to go talk to my parents. And so they went and talked to the Torah parents, and then next thing I know, they're both Torah observant again. Well, like the one is again, and then the other one switched over to Torah. And then they've been trying to bring their husbands into it for the last couple of years, but they've actually kept the feast with us several times. So it's I'm very, very blessed to have any congregation, let alone like my friends and family. So I'm very thankful for that.
Oh, I'd be scared to death. I'd start a fight.
I know it, right?
I don't know
I
anybody
really
that
did.
agrees with me on anything.
I really did. I thought that it was just going to be me and my wife because I was crazy and nobody else saw the Bible like I did. It was not an easy road, but yeah.
We had several years ago, early on in my search, I came across a congregation here in Omaha, and we it was clear that we drove her crazy. She did a Passover meal, and everybody there was questioning every move she made. Are you sure this is? How can you do this? No, this wasn't commanded. No, this isn't in Scripture. No, you're doing it wrong. I was so ashamed.
A
And yeah,
woman was hosting Passover and a bunch of men were complaining. Is that where
correct.
we're going? Okay. Wow. Okay. Please
Yeah,
continue. I just wanted
yeah,
to make
because
sure I had this right.
she had her husband's approval. It was her house. Her daughters were there, grown daughters helping out. The man of her husband would come later, late because he was working, but he supported her and stuff. And that's all they had was complaints. And I was there to try to learn how the heck to do it. And
Right.
everybody,
You're new. Yeah. You're new and hungry.
new and hungry. Yep.
And the other guys are just there complaining, we don't have any food, we don't have any water, we should have just stayed in Egypt.
Exactly.
God brought us into the wilderness just to kill us, like,
I know you did. You hate us.
I know I say it, but I know that I also do the exact same things, but I just wanted to throw that out there. That's kind of
And
what it sounds like.
what's funny is I I only had a couple questions, and the teenage daughters answered it, and it was on the leaven, on the leaven,
Hmm.
like as far as like get the leaven out of your house and stuff.
Right.
My question was, alcohol has yeast in it, and
Right.
these girls piped up without missing a beat. They were just sitting at the table. Anybody else could have answered. It was just a
No,
general
the
question.
Manischewitz is kosher for Passover.
They're like, "Oh, that's dead. That's dead yeast. It
I'm
doesn't count."
sorry. Please continue.
No, no, it's fine. She said something along the lines of, "It's dead yeast. It doesn't count." And I'm like, "Oh, well, there you go. You learn something new every day."
Right. Um. Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious that it's not wine because I think they tell you to drink wine with the Passover. Isn't that part of like the drink offering or something?
Yeah,
Um.
and then they dip their finger in
Well, I
it
mean,
every
yeah, as
uh,
far as like the Jewish side, but I mean, like if you were to,
the
follow
command.
follow like all of the laws surrounding the Passover
Yeah, he
and
definitely
unleavened.
served wine. Yeah, for especially now with Jesus doing that
Yeah.
wine toast
Yeah.
to the
So I
blood covenant.
mean, the way I see that is like literally get all of the bread that has leaven in it out of your house. And then, like back in the day, they would have had their yeast starter or whatever in a jar or something like that. So you could throw that out. But yeah, I don't think it was wine. I don't see getting rid of wine. That I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and I thought
Like,
we could just get by on
because I
saltine.
mean, there's yeast in the air. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way to like literally get all of the yeast out of your house.
Well, I
And
searched,
then
and quite frankly, we all know it's a pilgrimage feast anyway, right? We're supposed to be only doing this in Jerusalem.
right,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, so like maybe the bread would mold while you were gone. I don't know, but and then you could even go to the spiritual side and go to, towards like the leaven of the Pharisees and make sure that you don't have any man-made doctrine in your doctrine. Like I know some people that will like wipe the whole slate clean. Like we don't know how to figure out what the calendar is. We don't know whether it's Book of the Covenant or Book of the Law. We don't know anything, and they literally like start and start all of their doctrine over and make sure that they can biblically get all of their doctrine again.
And coincidentally, that leaven bubbles in your Wonder Bread is CO2, and whenever you talk, that's what comes out of your mouth, CO2.
Right. And like, yeah, like the bread we make today is not real bread. Like I mean, if somebody wanted to get rid of that bread, that's fine. If you do get rid of it or you don't get rid of it, it doesn't really matter, But like the reason that you get rid of it is the most important thing. But yeah, my wife actually makes homemade waffles with yeast. They actually have to sit and rise for like 45 minutes.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a big difference between that and the artificial bread we buy at the store. But yeah, it makes you think because all of the laws are in there for a reason. And not that I know
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
the reasons, but yeah.
that's what convinced me when I came to the conclusion. I mean, just reading some numbers out of the Bible and just doing a quick multiplication, I came up with 1945 being the end of the tribulation. But I'm not trying to harp on that. I'm just trying to lead up to something.
No. I'm really interested to hear it. Like
Well,
I
yeah,
love
it's
hearing
like,
opinions that are
well, you already
different because it makes me think different. You might give me a puzzle piece that I need to connect, this huge picture over here that I can't pick, connect.
right, and I picture myself as being in the body of Messiah. I picture myself as the exit, and so I may not have any truth of my own, but I have seen everybody else's poo, and I know what poo is. And when these guys start talking about, oh, the 1290 days and the 1335 years and the 70 weeks and the times and a half a time, I don't know what's true about it. I don't know how to put it all together, but I do know which parts of what they're telling me is poo. And so I can point out, no, that's not going to work. I don't know what the answer is, but I know it's not going to work. But no, back to the Feast of Unleavened Bread, we know they're pilgrimage feasts that we are to go to Jerusalem to do them, but it does say that one line in the on how to do the Feast of Unleavened Bread: in all your habitations, no leaven shall be found. So I kind of take that to mean my apartment here in Omaha, and I will search out the leaven as I would a valuable coin that the
Right.
parable of the woman. Yeah, so I'll look and
Yep.
I will clean my apartment to the point of the size of a coin. You know what I mean? I won't
Mm-hmm.
vacuum. You know what I mean? I'm looking for the leaven.
Yep.
And then quite honestly, the last thing me and my buddy do is he lives states away. We throw out our vacuum bag. Can you believe that? We are that
Oh,
particular about getting the leaven out of our
you
house.
Pharisee. That's
But
good.
hey, we're doing the best we can with what we got and know,
Yep.
and it's not
Just like
anti-scripture.
Daniel, whenever he was in captivity.
Babylon, yeah. I heard you talking about that. I think that's a wonderful a way of looking at doing the feast. How did they do it out of when they were in Babylon?
Yup.
But that was before Jesus. So we got a lot of we got rid of a whole bunch of sacrifices and stuff with Jesus. Thank goodness, the Levitical priesthood. So ours is really easy, but it's not free whatever you call it. It's not free willy nilly. Do whatever you want.
Right. I'm definitely with you there.
But yeah, you get invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb in your nasty clothes. That's all fine and dandy, but you better wash up and put on some, because the offer had to be there for when the servants went out to all the country and invited all sorts of people into the wedding feast. And then the bride or the groom or the father or somebody was walking and he said, "Why are you wearing rags?" It had to have been offered to him to be cleansed, and he had to have refused that cleansing.
Yep.
Otherwise, it wouldn't have been a surprise to the guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Don't you can come in with your filthy rags, but good Lord, do a mikvah, put on some white robes, uh, repent of your sins, forget the crud you've been taught, follow Him, love Him
Yeah. I mean, someone's offering you a free bath and a change of clothes. Like, I would take it.
for eternity. Gosh, when I was searching anyway, I was saying like I was searching out the law. It's like there's a law on what the leper should do when he gets cleansed, and there was only one leper cleansed in like 2,000 years of that law before Jesus came along, and it's like wow. So when I
Yeah.
see the law, so when people ask me, you know, about clean and unclean foods, and then some people will say, well, hey, you know, a pig has worms and a pig does this. It's like, I don't care. It's the fact that God told me not to is the reason I'm doing it. I don't care if we find out years later that cat turns out to have rabies and you could get sick by eating a cat. I don't care. The whole point was God told us to, and we should with a happy heart.
Yep. I am with you there.
It's that scripture you got up there.
This is Isaiah 14. Um, and I think this is another part of the greater Exodus. Maybe not, but it does talk about at least part of it, I think. Give them rest in their own land, and the strangers shall join them, or the Gentiles shall join them, cling to the house of Jacob. Um, and the house of Israel shall possess them for servants and female servants in the land, and they shall make captives of their captors and rule over their oppressors. Um, and then, yeah, how is Babylon fallen? Obviously, the whole, is this Jesus or Satan? Because they translate it as oh, the bright morning star or something like that in the KJV.
Yeah, it sounds like
Son of
Revelation.
the morning. Yeah. But anyways, we were talking about the greater Exodus earlier, and and stuff like that, and spoiling the nations and whatnot. I can't remember where the spoiling the nations one is, but anyways, yeah, I was just trying to flip through some stuff while we were talking, keep
Oh yeah,
the video changing.
Yeah, to align with the you were saying the like the ninth plague or something. The when they gave them all their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were trying to find that in this future prophecy. Is that what you're saying?
Right, yeah, because I mean, I think it starts in Deuteronomy 30 before they even enter the land. I think it talks about the second Exodus before they even finish the first one. Um, and then uh, Jeremiah 3:8, he writes Israel a certificate of divorce. And then in Hosea 2, he says that Israel is going to be my people again. Yeah, and I shall take you as a bride unto me forever, and take you as a bride unto me in righteousness and in right ruling and loving commitment and compassion. So he is at some point going to remarry Israel, or at least that's the way I interpret it. And then that Ezekiel 4, that 390 days, I think that it got multiplied times 7 because of rebellion. And I don't think it ended until like 2010-ish or 2008, 2010, somewhere around there.
I was going to try and do the math in my head, but you already did it, huh? About 2010, you said?
Yeah. And then I don't know when you came into the Hebrew roots or Torah, but that just seems to be like when an explosion of Hebrew roots people started waking up. So, but anyways, I still think that it's fairly obvious that Israel hasn't been brought back yet, because whenever you look at Israel being brought back, that's talking about the nation of Israel getting cleansed and it basically staying clean. And so, it's either fully spiritual and I'm completely missing it because I read everything too literally, or there could be a mixture here where it's partially fulfilled, but not like it's full on fulfillment.
Well, yeah, it would have to be until the two sticks come back. What you were just talking about, married Israel or Judah, yeah.
And that's in Isaiah, but I don't remember exactly. Or no, it's Ezekiel 37 is the two sticks. Rise up, dry bones. Yeah. Son of man, take a stick for yourself and write on it. Yep. There we go. For Joseph or Ephraim, the house of Israel, and for Judah. And see, I could still even, I think that like because in the Jewish marriage covenant, you will like betroth, you'll have your betrothal, and the wife comes with a dowry, but like until the marriage actually happens, the dowry is like set aside, but there is a sort of like down payment of the dowry that the bride or the groom gets to hang on to until the marriage actually happens, and then the full dowry comes in. So I could kind of see some of it as being like, we've got like the down payment and we know that he's faithful, so we can say that, it's pretty much guaranteed at this point. But which one is it? I thought that there was one of them in here where it was talking about Ephraim will no longer envy Judah, and Judah will no longer vex Ephraim. But yeah, and they shall no longer defile themselves with their idols, nor their disgusting matters, nor any of their transgressions. And I shall save them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned, and I shall cleanse them. So, yeah, it just seems to me that whenever this does happen, like Israel will be clean, and it'll be no doubt that it has happened, because everyone will be able to look at the nation of Israel, like the actual country, and then God's people actually being there. Uh, Man, I really wish I could remember that because I could have swore there was one. I know it's in. I was trying to find the verse here, and then I was going to go to Ephesians whenever it talks about it a little bit. Um, yeah, this so as to create in himself one renewed man from the two, thus making peace. I thought that this could be tied into um, that verse we were just looking at in Ezekiel, but
Oh,
I
one
think
man
there's
from the
an
two.
yeah. I like I
No,
said, I could be wrong, but there is another verse where it's talking about yeah. Oh, here we go. It's Isaiah 11, and he shall raise a banner for the nations and gather the outcasts of Israel, some of the dispersed of Judah, and the envy of Ephraim shall turn aside. So in the story of the prodigal son, Ephraim is the one that's in the pig pen. Judah is the one that stayed home, and Judah is the one that stayed home. So he's like, hey, my brother gave up his inheritance, or he went out and spent his inheritance. I'm the only one that stuck around. Now I'm going to get everything from the father, and the father's going to love me. But whenever Ephraim wakes up, he envies his brother because his brother is still at home, and then Judah does not want Ephraim to come home because now Judah's an only child and he can get everything. So yeah, and then like if you try and talk to Jews today and say, oh, I'm Ephraim, I'm Israel waking up in the wilderness and I want to keep Torah, like most Jews are not going to be very accepting of that. They don't like those Gentiles claiming that they're Ephraim. So I don't think that this has happened yet either. I could be
yeah,
wrong, I don't know. I
you
don't
can't
even.
go to Israel or buy land or whatever unless you show your bloodline. They are very anti-messianic Jew,
Yeah.
Hebrew, Christian.
Um,
They are very anti all those.
yeah, and then like this one, and he shall put the ban of the tongue of the Egyptians, and he shall wave his hand over the river with the might of his spirit, and shall strike it in the seven streams, and shall cause men to tread it in sandals. And there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, those who left from Ashur, as it was for Israel in the day when he came up from the land of Egypt. So like instead of parting the Red Sea, it almost sounds like he's going to part the oceans, and we're going to walk across the oceans over to Israel. Like I don't know, like there, like I said, I take it really literally, so I may be missing something and look really stupid here because I don't see. It's hard for me to see the spiritual side. So yeah, like I mean, what do you see whenever you read these verses here?
Well,
This 15 and
I
16.
well, I would have thought that the when they talk about the sea will dry up, I thought that meant specifically the Dead Sea. And then when it says something about the what is that? But anyway, I wasn't sure. So I was reading that Isaiah 11:15 there and wondering if that's what I was thinking about. So yeah, what the heck is that? And Yahovah shall put under the ban the tongue of the sea of, and he shall wave his hand
Yeah,
over the
this is
river.
not the
What?
best translation for this verse here,
Yeah,
or the
yeah. What
easiest to
river?
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
like
river?
I don't know if he means he's going to get rid of like the Egyptian language altogether, but I don't know what the sea is either. I don't know if that's what it says. The Lord shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea. So yeah, I don't know. Is that like the Mediterranean? I don't know. I have no idea. But it definitely is weird. But yeah, with the make them go over dry shod. I don't know if that's talking about like the Euphrates or what, but yeah, it just seems like they're like everything about the first Exodus is described in the second Exodus, and not only that, they make it seem extremely literal. So this is where I just throw up my hands and I go, I don't know, because that's all I can see.
Make his hand over the river. Unless they're talking about drying up the Euphrates, it would have to be the Nile, because if the Egyptian Sea was the
Right.
tongue, the Reed Sea or Gulf of Aqaba, whatever. But I don't know. So the seven streams. There's seven hills in Israel. I don't know about seven
Right.
streams.
Well, I mean, there's seven oceans too. So that's another thing. I'm just like, man, is he literally gonna like split every ocean? Like I don't know. I have no clue. You know, I try not to limit God, but
Well, what he's going to put in those seven streams is going to be that sea, right? Isn't that the context? He shall utterly destroy the tongue of that sea, and the wind shall shake
oh,
the
okay. And the Lord shall
river.
utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea, and with his mighty wind shall he shake his hand over the river, and then he shall smite it, the river, into seven streams. So the
Right, not the,
river's
I'm
going to
sorry,
turn into
yeah,
seven,
yeah.
but then
It,
also he's going to make men go over dry shod, and there will be a highway from the or for the remnant of his people.
yeah, so that does
But
sound like the
that's
drying up the
that's coming from
Euphrates.
that's coming from Assyria though, so yeah, we'd have to look at a map.
Well, right, the Euphrates would have to be for the one for Assyria.
Right.
Assyria is just
Hmm.
kind of connected to Israel on the upper right there, but
Right.
it's that's where Abraham came out of, right? Our father was an Assyrian.
I think that's
Demont-
on the east side of Israel is where Assyria is.
Yeah,
It may
just east,
be,
maybe northish, but still
yeah,
connected with east. Yeah,
yeah, it might have been north of Babylon.
Nineveh is just on the far east of that Assyria, on the outskirts. I think it's
I should
just
have
on.
a map up. That would make things a lot more easier. But anyways, like, yeah, I just read stuff like this and I'm just like, man, you know, it sounds so literal and so close to the first Exodus that I don't know. Um, and then this, what is this enzyme? It seems like this gets used somewhere else too. Okay, it's the pole that the fiery serpent got put on top of. Hmm. Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, Banner. Yeah, that's me. My last name is
Yeah.
Banner.
Right? That's interesting. So Ness, Nace. I don't know. But yeah, I just like that's why I enjoy talking to other people because whenever you know that you only see things certain ways, you need to be able to see other perspectives. So
So hit up that. Scroll down just two more to that ban on the name, or excuse me, the ban. Is that a ban on the name? And Yahovah, what do you say? Yahweh shall put, or where are we at here?
yeah.
Shall put under the ban. What the heck's this ban? Shall put under the
Well, I think
ban,
it means like get rid of it, destroy it.
and the Lord shall utterly destroy the tongue.
Yeah. Yeah, utterly destroy. Ban. Put under the ban, utterly destroy.
Interesting. Because I don't know what's wrong with the tongue of the Egyptian. You know what I mean? It's not like it's the Egyptian sea. Yeah, I keep.
Yeah, you know, but what is the language of the Egyptian sea? I you know, like I don't know what that means.
Well, when I look at that sea, I see there's. I would think there would be tongues, like little. The Gulf of Aqaba is one tongue, and then that other thing. It's two little offshoots, and those. And then the other. It just looks like a bunch of fingers, and
Right.
that's like the tongue of the Egyptian sea, the tongues, the forked tongue or whatever it is. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, boy, that's got to dry up, and that Gulf of Aqaba. You believe that's the Red Sea crossing there? That that sounds like that all over again with that wind blowing and
You're right.
yeah. So, but it's got to be dried up for the kings of the east or something. Kings of the east.
I heard it. I wasn't gonna say anything.
Oh my wow, that's funny. Too coincidental. But no, what is that? Feast of Tabernacles. Like I say, I just throw a party, a 8-day party, maybe 9, depending on the Sabbaths. And I
Right.
don't
Yep.
really invite anybody, but I don't know. I get a bunch of I don't know, chips and dip or something, and I blow up balloons, and usually somebody comes, some stranger, some sojourner, some person I haven't seen in a while. Invariably, every time it seems to happen, and I just love doing that. It's something that you can do that's fun and easy. It's not like it's going to get my salvation. It's
Right.
quite frankly, in fact, what was the law? According to the law, what happened if you did eat pig? Were you cast into the lake of fire? What was the consequences of not doing the Sabbath? Well, you're supposed to get killed, but I guess that was a bad example. But I'm just saying, what are some of the results of some of these that you couldn't have done a sacrifice for? What's so hard about them that you can't take to Jesus now? You know what I
Right.
mean?
And
And all,
and even then, like even whenever you were supposed to do sacrifices, granted, I'll admit that the picking up sticks on the Sabbath probably wasn't the best example, but they did take that guy before Yah, so God got to judge him and put the punishment down. He knew what was going on with that guy's heart. So I try not to like put a whole lot on that one because there's a lot of details we don't know. But
right. And what I like,
like he does say, "Come, let us reason together." So I think even if you were, quote unquote, under the old covenant and you did something wrong, you still should seek Yah and, you know, reason with him. Say, hey, look, I screwed up. I know that don't want me to do this. Like there's your repentance. If before you even go to the temple, you need to go clear your heart with your brother before you make your sacrifice. And Yah is the same way.
and there's a
And
sacrifice for ignorance. So if you don't know,
yeah,
you can always
yeah,
do a
and there is a
sacrifice.
sacrifice for ignorance. But I mean,
Just
if
go
they
to
would have
Jesus.
just
I'm sorry, Jesus. I
humbled
don't know.
themselves at the time and said, hey, I messed up, how do they know that God wouldn't be like, hey, you know what, I forgive you, you don't even have to go make a sacrifice, like, thanks for coming and talking to me.
Exactly.
The laws that we see written down are the judgments and punishments for whenever restitution is not fixed before court. At any point, if you wronged somebody, you could go and talk to them and work something out and get restitution without taking it to court. Like no one says that you had to take it to court, or just because the law of adultery says that you have to kill the male and the female. Well, that's only at the husband's request. If he's like,
Yeah.
hey, you know what?
Good luck getting four witnesses. Two witnesses against her and two witnesses against him. Good luck getting four witnesses. We were all there
Well,
and
I
watched it
think
all happen.
I think you'd only need two because you'd kind of catch them both at the same time. But like, what if the husband was like, hey, you know what? She obviously doesn't want to be with me. I'll just write her a certificate of divorce. If they're going to be happy together and she's not happy with me, then why can't I just show love for my brother and say, hey, you know what? Maybe maybe we did it wrong. Whatever. And he can forgive his brother. Like, no one said that they have to be, I mean, yes, it does say they have to be put to death, but I think it's only if the husband is the one like pressing charges with the prosecuting attorney, if you will.
But yeah, that example of the gathering sticks. I want to make a quick
Yeah,
note
because
here.
that's got to be like Numbers 15, right?
The gathering sticks guy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was Deuteronomy because 2 chapters before they tell us what
Okay.
to do if the leader of the congregation causes the whole congregation to sin. There's a sacrifice for that. And then it tells us in the next chapter, what if one person in the congregation causes
Yeah.
all, and then at the very end of that it says, but whatever you do, don't come presumptuously towards the Lord. And then it starts that chapter where they talk about the guy with the sticks. So this guy with the sticks is an example of somebody coming presumptuously to the Lord. So this
Yeah.
gathering sticks, had it been work, they would have known what to do with him. They would have killed him. But since he was whatever he was doing gathering sticks was not work, it was a good example of somebody coming presumptuously to the Lord, he had to be put to death. But I just want to make it clear. A lot of people say, "Oh, this guy gathering sticks for heat. Oh, this guy gathering sticks for food for to cook his meal." No, that's not in the text. Not
Right.
he wasn't so. And the fact that he was gathering these sticks, and it was not work, makes you put on your thinking cap. And maybe he was going out on the Sabbath and gathering them, but leaving the sticks out in the wilderness in a little bunch. So then on the first day of work, he would go out, and all he'd have to do is just gather that bunch instead of everybody else who would be gathering them into a pile first. Or maybe he was walking through the camp and saying, "Oh, can I have a stick from you?" And then he'll go to the next hut. "Hey, can I have a stick from you?" And pretty soon he's got like a whole bunch, he's done a bunch of work. But it's not that he was gathering sticks like, "Hey, he was out there gathering sticks and doing work. We better go kill him." It's not that cut and dry. A lot of, in fact, the Seventh Day Adventists will use that example of, look, this is how serious you are to take the Sabbath. Don't even go out and gather sticks. And it's like, no, you're getting it all wrong. You're scaring people into this Sabbath keeping stuff. You're scaring them. This dude was doing something that was outside of work, but it was poking a finger at God somehow.
Right. Well, I mean, it's literally following verses that say, "But the being who does whatever defiantly, because he has despised the word, broken the commandment,"
exactly. It's like he's out there picking them up with
he reviles God. Yeah, because like you said, it's talking about whoever does whatever by mistake. There is a law both for him and the native, but for the being who does whatever defiantly, like rebellion has no sacrifice.
Yep, that's why they had to kill him.
Yeah, and so I think it's pretty telling whenever we're following these verses that's talking about someone defiantly and reviling God. So like I think that you're correct in saying that this is somebody who was shaking his finger at God and like, "Ha, you can't strike me down, it's the Sabbath." I don't know.
Oh yeah, exactly. Good point. Yeah, it's the Sabbath. You'll have to kill me tomorrow.
I don't know, but anyways, God is the one that handed down the punishment to Moses.
But clearly, it's not the fact that he was like doing the work of gathering the
right. Yeah, it wasn't like some old lady was freezing to death and this guy was just going to get her some wood, or he needed something to cook with or whatever. Like there was definitely something else going on here.
Yep.
Yeah. And then he probably tried to lie and say, "Oh, I didn't know," or whatever, and then that's why God had to judge it, and then God gives the commandments about the tassels, So like, no, you're not gonna forget. Like, if you've worn tzitzit, they get in your way. It's hard to forget that you're wearing them, in my opinion. Like, anytime you go to put your hand in your pocket or like the bottom of your coat or something like that, or if you literally are doing work and you're like rolling around on the ground, or you gotta make sure that it doesn't get caught up in a piece of machinery or something like that, like it's, you can tell they're there, or at least in my opinion. I think that they should be, I don't think they need to be super long like the Pharisees, but I think that they should be long enough for you and other people to see them and that they are there.
Don't be afraid to grab a hold of them.
Right, I know it, man. Like you might just catch some healing.
Well, I mean, I don't want to. I hate to use. It seems like whenever these people that don't like the law, whenever they talk about sin, they'll jump to Paul. Oh, lust and lasciviousness and homosexuality, and it's like, dude, you're not even quoting Torah. I'm sorry, they are quoting Torah. But
they are quoting Torah. Yeah,
they're quoting Torah, but they're jumping to Paul for their law reference on what sin is, and it's like, dude, if you got like a problem with porn, for instance, just grab. Well, boy, that sounded dirty. You grab a hold of that tsetse instead of what. Just grab it. It'll remind you. It'll remind you, at least for the moment. You see I don't know, a pretty girl on the street or something that you're lusting after. I don't know what the sin would be if she's single and you're single, but just as an example, grab that teetsy and just remember his commands. Or maybe your senile grandmother is calling you names and you want to call her names back. Grab hold of that teetsy and say, "Hey, man, ain't no need for that. I will honor her. I will honor her. I have remembered her." In fact, Jesus, when he made a whip of small cords, didn't he? I'll bet you $10 it was teetsy. A whip of small cords with a bunch of guys wearing small cords. Come on.
Right. I see. Yeah, I don't know how to take that. Like, I don't know. I really don't. Like, it it sure seems like it should be a whip, and I get that they're probably using like the same words.
But no,
Uh,
the whip he made was of small cords. It wasn't just like one small cord.
oh, like he made a whip out of Zizio.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be great if he just like walked up to a table and flipped it over, grabbed a bunch of well, I guess he did that later. He braided the whip first. But yeah, that would be freaking brilliant if he made a whip out of literal zeets.
If it was in a
I
movie,
didn't
I'd
catch
buy it.
I didn't catch that the first time you say it. Now I just feel like an idiot for like what was he gonna go whip him with like a
Well, there's no proof. I
foot long
mean,
Zezio? Like I'm confused here, but
yeah,
I get it now. I was
there's no
just
proof, but it is a good thought. Yeah.
but yeah, no, now I understand what you're saying. I don't know how I didn't catch that the first time.
No, no, you're fine. It's cool.
Yeah, doesn't matter how smart you are. It's God that was the one that's got to reveal it for you. um, so who like do you watch Michael Rood a lot, or are you against Michael Rood? I just noticed he was mentioned in some of your videos, and you talked about him a little bit earlier. So,
Yeah, he's my number one go-to guy. I'm like, oh, I don't know what you would call it, 80% on board with him. I would suggest any of his teachings. In fact, I've gone through every single one of his teachings back when I had plenty of time. Every frame of every video he ever made, I reproofed every word of his. I will gladly say I find no fault, but yeah, there's a couple things that I disagree with. But the one that I really wish I had his attention to discuss with him would be the Passion Week. But no, he's the one that nailed the 70-week ministry. He's the one that led us on the path to take out John 6:4. He showed us how Matthew chapter 1 is the father of Mary, not the husband of Mary, so that we get 14, 14, and 14 generations. His Hebrews teaching, I would will last the ages. His Hebrews teaching, I would suggest, oh, put it on loop. But no, as far as the Passion Week, he nailed it with Jesus' triumphal entry on the 10th, when the high priests inadvertently chose him by saying, Hosanna, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord.
mhm.
But then, since the Holy Spirit gave me the correct chronology, he's wrong there. But no, I love his Jonah code. Everything he teaches, everything is just so wonderful. And he has had his second heart stroke or whatever for the last 2 years. He's been recovering from it. But hopefully he'll get back on the scene because he is much needed. Like I say, I disagree with him on some things, but since he taught me how to read the Bible, I respect him. He taught me to look for the relative pronouns, to look for
Mhm.
the original Hebrew, to look up just common sense. In fact,
Right.
one of the first things he said was, "You're gonna until you know about the feast of the Lord, you've got really no business doing anything." So I dove into the feast of the Lord, and I don't mean through a Google search. I mean, I simply read the text, and you
Right.
come up with a beautiful map of how to do the feasts, and then you see Jesus coming in and doing the exact down to the minute,
Yep.
crying out when Jesus is crying out, It is finished. The high priest was crying out on the Temple Mount, it is finished, for the final Passover lamb, which was done. It's just genius that the good Lord set this in motion 1200, 1500 years earlier, and they were doing it year after year after year. And then all of a sudden, Jesus does it exactly like that. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And yeah,
Oh,
I
right.
give it all to Rude, Nehemiah Gordon, Keith Johnson, Arthur Bailey. Wonderful, wonderful teachers, and they got their poop together.
So how long have you been doing this?
I always say a couple of years, but the more I think about it, the more a couple of years go by. I'd just say like a couple of
Yeah,
years, maybe 6,
I was gonna say, like,
5
but
or
the
6.
names that you're mentioning have been around for a minute. So if I've been through 8 sessions of feast and been in the faith for 9 years, like you definitely got more than a couple years.
Well, I
You
remember
don't
everybody
sound
freaking
like
out on the
someone who's
blood.
only been in it for like 3 or 4 years.
Well, I remember that everybody was freaking out in 2012 that the world was going to end, and I remember trying to tell people at that point about Rude. Uh, but that's back when he had his Shabbat Night Lives were like 2.5 hours long.
Right. Yep. Okay.
No, he's I love
Yeah.
him.
You've
You
got
know,
to be doing this for like 10 years then, because like I said, if I've been through eight
yeah,
sessions of feast, that takes us back. It's 2022 now, so
no way I've been doing it that long.
14. Yeah. So you've got to be at least 10 years in. If you were warning people in 2012, like
Yeah,
that's 10 years ago.
yeah, because everybody's like, oh, it's the whatever, all the stuff that was going. There was 3 different big things going on for
So yeah,
2012,
yeah.
and
I
some guy
I
and
I,
Rude,
I
yeah,
kind of
Rude,
figured you'd be one of those guys that woke up around 2008, 2010. I mean,
yeah,
granted, there has been
sounds
people
about
around
right.
longer, obviously, but
Yeah, because I was with this one girl in 2007, and I still remember. I think I was just kind of asking, seeking, knocking at that point. But no, I don't.
right.
I don't really have
Yeah.
a congregation, and I like I say, I wouldn't belong to any group, that would have me as a member.
So
Groucho Marx said that.
so how did you get into it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because this is my favorite story to ask anybody. Like it's even more so as Sukkot, because it's a lot of people you haven't met before, so you can just hear all the cool answers. But yeah, I love hearing people's testimonies about what drew them into the faith, I guess.
I would say a Pentecostal pastor. I was here in these apartments, living whatever. I seen a pastor, an old man, white hair, drop off $10 to one of my neighbors, ghetto. And I said, "What's that?" And they said, "Oh, that's he gave me $10 to put gas in my car to get to church." And I thought that was cool. 3 years later, I had some questions on the Bible and stuff. And so I said, I want to find a place to go. And I said, "Who is this guy?" And they said, "Oh, and so I went to his church, and it was a cold winter day, and there was like 7 people in the entire church, and I was one of them. And they all came up to me begging me, "Oh, who are you?" And, "Oh, we want to save you, this and that, blah blah blah." But anyway, that pastor guy, it was a Pentecostal church where they speak in tongues and everything, and he told the story of the brass serpent in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Some snakes were biting the people, so they had to make a brass serpent and lift it up on a pole. And Jesus said he had to be lifted up like that brass serpent. And I said, "Dude, I was an altar boy. I was a Catholic for 20 years. What are you talking about? A brass serpent and Jesus is referencing the Old Testament? What are you talking about?" Oh, I couldn't believe it. I go, what's this brass serpent stuff? And it's like, oh, I couldn't believe it. And Jesus said that he's got to be lifted up. And so I had a curiosity, and boy, I started searching. And yeah,
Right.
through Google, I came across Michael Rood, and he had a whole bunch of videos out, but one of them was Michael Rood Exposed. So I said, I'm gonna look at everything he has to. If he's that important that somebody wants to expose him, I want to
Right.
look at him before I look at your video. I want to look at him, make my own independent decision. So I
Mm-hmm.
went through a couple of his videos, and I'm like, wow. And I was waiting for him to say something wrong. And I watched a couple more videos, and I kept waiting for him to say something wrong, and he was spot on. And I was waiting for him to say something like, "Oh, you have to wear a yarmulke," and he never said that. I kept. So finally, I went through most of the videos I could, and I thought he was a genius. And I said, "Oh, I'm going to go to this Michael Rood exposed video." And so I clicked on it, and it's a Michael Rood video. It's kind of a joke. He's like, it's like, yeah, all this time I thought somebody had something against him, and nobody had anything against him. But no, and then through him, you find Nehemiah Gordon, Dr. Nehemiah Gordon, Dr. Roy Blizzard, Arthur Bailey, all those good guys.
Right. Yeah. I can definitely tell you've been in the walk for a while. Um, do you know Wits It Gets It on YouTube?
Say the name again. What's it gets it?
Yeah, I'll just put it in the chat because it's
Sounds like a
uh,
long word, a
right.
hyphenated.
It sounds weird, but anyways, I was somebody in the Standing for Truth chat who I was pretty sure was Torah mentioned this other YouTube channel, and so I went there and I listened to the guy talk for maybe half an hour. Maybe it was an hour. I might have watched like an hour of his stuff, but in that time that I watched, it may have been two or three different videos. But he mentioned not eating pig, and he mentioned something else, and I was like, "This dude's Torah, no freaking way!" And so the more I listened, the more things I kept hearing that just made me think that he is Torah, and so I just threw it up in his chat. And I'd only watched, like I said, like maybe 2 hours of his videos at this point. And so I asked him in chat, and he actually answered the question like on live stream. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I don't really advertise it, but yeah, like that is what I believe." And then it just completely sidetracked the video for like the next 15 minutes was just people asking all sorts of these questions and Christians, commenting. Yeah, it was, yeah. I was like, I'm sorry for ruining your show or sidetracking your show or whatever, but yeah, it's just funny that whenever like it takes one to know one, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting that you can just tell by listening to how somebody talks.
Exactly. I saw you getting the grill by Ryan the other night. He put me through.
Oh.
He put me through the exact same ringer. He had the exact same stuff ready for you, and he knew your answers before
Right,
you
yeah,
answered.
yeah. He did not want to sit and let me answer those questions.
He knew. And now I know that if you're going to say that his audience was all clean eaters, I get that. But don't you see that he's telling you, look at right here, what goes into your mouth does not defile you. Can you read that back to me? It's like,
Yeah,
dude, it's
yeah.
it's it's a it's a rabbinical law that you can look up to this day that you have to
Hmm.
say a prayer and do and wash your hands a certain way whenever you
Yep.
eat bread. It's not even a clean, unclean food thing. It's like,
Right.
he put you
Yeah.
through the ringer. I was laughing, man. I was just laughing. I was dying to see your answer. I was dying to see your
Right.
answer.
Yeah, like, and I'm used to it. Like like Mark 7, let's see, Romans 10:4, Ephesians 2, Colossians 2, 1 Timothy 4,
Oh, all the things that people bring
Romans
against you.
14.
Is, is,
I
is
mean,
that,
like,
is that
those are
what you
just the verses that every Christian goes to. We don't
Yep,
have to keep the law, and it's like,
yep,
things
yep,
you've heard a million times, and literally, a 5-year-old, maybe a 6-year-old that's been raised in Torah could answer these questions.
yep.
And that's another thing I love about the Feast of Tabernacles is you see kids that like they haven't been raised any other way. They don't have the preconceived notions of like Christmas and Easter and the law being done away with and I mean, seriously, like some of the teenagers there are having talks that, like I definitely wasn't having my first couple of years into Torah. Like
Or as a
it's
teen.
mind blowing to see like the next generation whenever they grow up in it and they, live and breathe it, if you will.
That's what kills me with Jamie and even you. You guys look young. How come you're not out, clubbing or doing
Yeah,
stuff?
I mean, yeah, I'm 35, so I mean, I'm not young, but I'm not old either. Um, you know, and then like I haven't done my own ministry because most of the stuff that I would teach would just be stuff that I've learned from somebody else. I would just say, oh, go check out this ministry.
Exactly.
But now there's actually more live shows on YouTube and a chat you can actually interact with, and like this is way better than trying to talk to somebody on Facebook that isn't interested in learning anyway. But yeah, I mean, I used to argue in like Facebook chat rooms or debate, whatever you want to call it. But and I never tried to convince the person I was arguing with. I always knew that there was somebody else reading all of the comments that, their heart was actually seeking truth and they didn't care who was saying what. They were just going to look at what was being said and, they were going to figure it out for themselves, because I know I can't convince anybody. You can answer a million questions in a row and they're still going to say, but what about this? It doesn't
Yep.
matter how many you answer. If they're not looking for truth, they're always going to say, but what about this? And so, yeah, I don't care if somebody doesn't believe me or if somebody thinks they win a debate or whatnot. I know somebody out there in the crowd is listening, so I'm just going to do my thing, and the people with ears to hear will hear.
Yeah, because there's only about, I think it was CJ. He said there's only about 26 verses that keep coming up on us law dogs versus people that are against Torah, that they keep bringing up the same, Galatians
Yeah.
3. Yeah, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean. There's only about 26 verses, and quite honestly, you could probably memorize an answer for each of the
Yeah.
verses, or you could simply understand there's more than one law, there's more
Mm-hmm.
than one, the thing that they could be talking about on here. What you've heard, what you've seen on TV is not a good example of what you should be doing with when you're trying to interpret your own Bible.
Right. Yeah, I was surprised. Granted, I don't know CJ a whole lot. I'm assuming you're talking about CJ Cox.
Yeah, I
And
think that's his last name. Yeah.
yeah, so whenever I first look at his videos, it's Shabbat night, and then he's got like the all of his feast videos, and so I was like, oh, like this guy's Torah. But then whenever you listen to him, he's not Torah.
Nope.
And then, but he talks like the law is good, but then like and then he said that he was a Jew, so I'm assuming he's born Jewish, but he doesn't seem to know anything about the Torah, so I'm assuming that he's a secular Jew. And then I don't know how he got into Christianity, or maybe his family was Christians, and that's why he doesn't know anything about the Torah. But yeah, like some of the answers that he gives, I'm like, oh man, like I'm surprised that you answered it that way, because with all of this Hebrew on your channel, I assumed you would be Torah, and you're not. So yeah, that it was
Yeah,
surprising.
he was in a debate one time, and he was saying something about how during Passover the first fruits is always 2 days after Passover, and I'm like, no, that's rabbinical. What,
Yeah, and
what's
see,
like
I
where?
think that's because he thinks that Easter and Passover are somehow the same thing, or that
Yeah, he celebrates Easter
Easter
and Passover.
isn't Ishtar. Like I haven't watched the video, but like I have no idea how you could say that Easter and Passover are the same thing, and that Easter is not Ishtar, the pagan goddess. Like it blows my mind. But again, I haven't watched the videos, so there may be something out there. I did watch Jamie's video, and I think maybe it was Chris's video. I can't remember. It may have been Chris Lucas's video, but it was talking about how they did used to use Easter and Passover interchangeably. And then I'm assuming that at some point there was some sort of split, and then they started taking Easter and mixing it in with the pagan stuff. Like maybe that came later or something. Because it was on like the King James Bible and the errors in it. And, you know, the King James Version translating Pesach as Easter in Acts.
Yeah, because he's real. He's very. Chris is real knowledgeable about the Catholic Church, and with Constantine and Eusebius, they could just kind of ruined everything for everybody.
Yeah,
You know,
dude.
when
I
they
cannot
say,
imagine how many books Chris has read.
oh my gosh, he is, and he works 70 hours a week.
Yeah, dude. And he's still in chat talking right now. Like, just love that dude. Like, that dude is working, straight working all the time. Definitely, yeah, I really appreciate his stuff. I've been catching up on his videos here in the last couple of days. Then I'll move over to yours. I know you got shorter ones, but yeah, I throw on a video and listen while I work around the house and stuff.
Man, if I could just get the simplest of editing programs, I could make my videos. Man, but
Well, what do you want to do? I
well,
mean, I'll
just
help you do stuff.
well,
I'll do
I
anything.
just want to cut out the middle of. I have to do my videos all in one take. I,
Gotcha.
and the only thing I can do is trim off like a little bit of the ends.
Gotcha.
I
Gotcha.
can't take anything out of the middle. I can't add, I don't know,
Right.
words. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I need to
Oh,
learn how to do all that stuff.
but at one point, I was told a couple months ago, I started checking out this Hit Films to see if I could use their editing software.
Right.
Um, and then it kind of fell by the wayside. It did not look like it was something I should be doing. I didn't get the feeling from heaven that I should be learning that. I don't know what. I'm not trying to act weird. I'm just letting you know. I thunk about it at one point and pushed it aside. How's that sound? That sounds better.
There you go. I try and say I'm not old enough to be an elder yet, so there's my excuse. Not saying I may not be old enough to be a teacher, but that comes with responsibility. I'd much rather just be some crazy guy in a chat group on YouTube that nobody takes seriously. I hope people research the things that I say and not just like, oh, you know, he's got doctor or pastor or, you know, whatever in front of his name and I should listen to him. So,
Yeah, because that's one of the biggest problems we run into with people searching out the law. They'll find something rabbinical. They'll start
yeah,
wearing the prayer shawl. They'll start letting their locks grow, or whatever the case may be, and then they'll just,
right.
because there's like 5 stages of Hebrew roots, and some paths lead to atheism.
Yeah, you've probably seen more than I have, so I'm just gonna let you roll with this for a minute. This is an interesting topic. I'd love to hear your take on it.
On what I was just talking about, or what you're putting up.
Yeah. The stages of Hebrew roots and
Oh yeah, I don't know
some
what
of
they
it
are.
leading to atheism. I'm
Oh yeah,
curious
yeah.
if you are gonna say the same things that I would say. I'm just
Yeah,
curious if you see the same
they
things.
search out, they do a quick Google search, and they see what is it, Rabbi Schneider preaching something really cool and blowing a shofar, and the next thing you know, they'll go out and buy a shofar, and they're trying to do the Sabbath and in such a way that it can't be done, that it was never intended. They'll try to follow the feasts in a way it was never intended, totally rabbinical, just like Jesus was preaching against. So they'll they'll turn into Judaism, and after Judaism, they will turn to I think it's Christianity, specifically OSAS, where you don't need to do anything, kind of like anti-law. And then, yeah, if not Buddhist or Islam after that, it's definitely the fifth stage is atheism. They just give up. There is no God. But if you do a good search, you're like you're supposed to. You do a diligent inquiry. You just don't hit that first Google search. You just don't put your trust in that first rabbi. You back it up with scripture. If you do
Right.
a diligent search, then you can say, "Oh, I see what's going on here. We got a little Passover thing going on here. We got a little Sabbath thing going on here, and we got a little salvation through Jesus Christ going on here. It all works out perfect."
I've got to stock the wood stove here real quick, so just take it away for a few minutes.
I'm going to start reading on this thing here. 1 Timothy 4:2, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having been branded on their own conscience, forbidding to marry, saying to abstain from foods which Elohim created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth. Because every creature of Elohim is good, and none is to be rejected if it is received with thanksgiving, for it is set apart by the word of Elohim in prayer. Talking about actual food, not on whether it's clean or unclean. Only clean food is food. So when they say food, they don't mean anything unclean. It's like saying, hey, let's have Thanksgiving and eat some food. You don't go to the Thanksgiving dinner and bring mud or a cat or a bat or a rat. But no, good old Timothy there. He's just speaking about uh, the good Torah, the written Torah observant brethren of ours.
Right, and there's that word set apart again. So where is food set apart from non-food in the Word of God? If you received this letter from Paul, and the only scripture you have is the Old Testament.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like it's just context. But yeah, it's been on my mind lately to do short, sweet videos, you know, like Mark 7, and just go over Mark 7 or Colossians 2 or Ephesians 2 or First Timothy 4, Romans 14, and just do like a, you know, 5-10 minute video on just one chapter. That way somebody can say, oh, you know, what about this? And you can just say, hey, you know, here's 5 minutes right here. It'll explain the whole thing. Because
Yeah, because there's only a certain amount of verses, and you would
right,
you would
yeah,
have
it wouldn't take long, and it would be, I don't know if it's better is the correct word, but it would be easier for that person to watch a 5 or 10 minute video than an hour long video.
oh exactly.
You know, especially if you're sending them to, you know, Michael Rood or some of these other guys that use a bunch of Hebrew words, because that was my trouble whenever I came in. Was I found New Torah, but he was already using like Hebrew words. And so I was listening to what he was saying, but I didn't have the vocabulary and I wasn't understanding everything and it wasn't really making any sense. And then I figured
Too
out
bad
that
his
you
name is
could,
New to Torah and he's using advanced stuff.
right. Well, he was a little bit further in than, like, it wasn't like he had just woken up. So, but yeah, you know, he was using like Sabbath and like the Hebrew words for feast days and stuff like that. Um, but anyway, so yeah, I wasn't really quite understanding what it was that he was saying. And then I was still new to YouTube at this time. Like, yeah, this was like 9-10 years ago. And I didn't realize that you could sort from oldest and newest on the videos. So I went, you know, I did that. And then I could see his starting videos on YouTube. And he had like my testimony or how I got here. I can't remember what the video was called, but he basically just explained, you know, his process of leaving the church and moving into what he was doing now. Um, and like whenever he said it, it just made sense. And I was like, oh, this is simple. But, you know, I mean, he's convinced me, but I don't see how, you know, Christianity has had it wrong for 2,000 years when it's literally this simple. You know, I was just like mind blown and couldn't believe it. So then I had to study it out for a minute because the only people I knew, their parents were father or their parents were fathers. Their fathers were pastors. And so I didn't want to just, you know, hey, look at what I found and I don't know anything about it or how to defend it. You know, I wanted to be able to answer a few questions. So yeah, you know, I went over these like Colossians 2, 1 Timothy 4, you know, stuff like that. So that whenever I did bring it up to him, I didn't sound like a complete idiot because I really never had read the Bible before. Um, I,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, like I tried going to church. I had a friend in school, and if we stayed over at his house on Saturday, we had to go to church with him on Sunday. And like it was with his grandparents, and they went to early service. You know, I mean, like we were up at like 6, and there was 4 services, and we were at the first one. You know, it was yeah. And then, you know, so at first it was we did it because we had to, but then I actually got to the point where I wanted to, and I'm the kind of person that like in school, you know, I didn't have to study ever. Like I don't think I've ever studied for a test in my entire life. You know, if I read it or you know hear it or whatever, it's just stuck up in the brain. You know, and so whenever I went to church, I kind of assumed that it was going to be the same way. Like before, you know, I didn't really want to be there. I wasn't paying attention. I was mainly just trying to stay awake because we stayed up way too late the night before. And so I was really frustrated whenever I wanted to go and I wanted to learn, but then it just nothing stuck with me. It didn't matter, you know, what I read or what I heard. It was just, you know, I wake up the next morning and it's all gone. And it really frustrated me. And then I watched you know, well, I guess high school and all that good stuff. You know, I didn't have time for church anymore. So yeah, like I really just never read the Bible. I mean, I went to church, but it was one of those churches where they, you know, read 2 verses and then the pastor tells you some story about his life that somehow or another connects to these 2 verses that he's making a doctrine on. So, you know, there was no like spiritual food being given out. And then, you know, I stumbled across the New Tutorial YouTube page and started watching their videos. And then, you know, I was pretty convinced and I had to do some research. And then, like, the more research I did, like, the more convinced I got. And I was dating my wife at the time. And, like, after I got convinced that, like, this is the real deal, it was like right before Sukkot. And so there was, you know, just not enough time to have the conversation with my wife or my girlfriend at the time. And so I was like, you know, hey, it's going to sound really crazy, but you know, this is what I believe now. And, you know, if you're not going to be willing to walk down this road with me, like, we should probably just split here because I don't see me splitting off of this road, you know. So uh, she was game to hear about it. So I told her all about it. And she's like, okay. And so, yeah, um, I forgot where I was going with this.
So yeah, what? She's
Oh,
with you
yeah.
to this day? She's
Yeah.
with
So,
you?
yeah. Yeah.
No
Yeah.
way.
Sorry. She's my wife. We got a child together. Um, and like, it's really wild too because I actually, you know, like we both made the decision, yeah, we're going to be together, we'll get married, this is the way we're going to walk. And then I literally got a year's salary, like in one check. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
sweet.
I literally got to take a year off with my wife and do nothing but study the Bible. Like just sun up to sundown was me hanging out with my wife and studying the Bible and, you
Man.
know, just sharing what I had learned. And so I did like you did, you know, I watched every video and I didn't know the Bible. So like anytime they put a verse up on screen, I had to pause it and go get, you know, I had an old like 1950s King James, before they put in all foods are clean or whatever.
Hmm.
And so like I didn't trust that, the words that they were putting on screen would be the actual words. So, I had to physically see that the words in the physical Bible were the words that they were putting up on screen.
That's the first thing you're supposed to do. That's fun.
Yeah, so like, yeah. And then if I didn't understand those verses, I'd read the chapter. If I didn't understand it still, I'd read another chapter, and then yeah. So, uh, so anyways, yeah, I've done a lot of studying because I had a lot of time, but it was kind of a complete accident. So, I mean, I can kind of see those people that argue that, the Father has to draw you, but then I can also see the side that says that you have to repent, so I don't know. I really think that those are not the best like arguments and debates to get into, because I think that we should just be educating people, which it's hard to educate people when nobody agrees on doctrine, so they start arguing about other stuff. Like I get that, but you know, I don't see the point of arguing over, oh, does the Father draw you, or do you have to repent, or is it this or that? Like I don't know. I'm just like a Deuteronomy 4:27 to 31. Just humble yourself, open up your heart, and I think he'll answer, because that's how it happened to me. I don't know
You
if
know,
he drew me
Balaam's
first.
ass was Balaam's ass drawn,
Yeah, like
or did
I
the
don't know if
Father?
he drew me first
Yeah,
or if I
oh
seeked
my
him first,
God!
but like I know that there was one point in my life where I was basically at the end of the rope and I called out and he answered, like it's I hate using man-made words to describe something in the Bible whenever you could just point to a verse and go, here you go. I can't explain it to you. I can't tell you the exact interpretation of how it should, be read or whatever, but here's the verse that explains what it is that's going on or what you need to do or blah blah blah. You need to open up your heart and let that speak to you. So I don't know. I'm more for educating people and getting them to think, I guess. I try and post the verses and just let people read them, and hopefully it'll strike their heart. That's I guess all I'm trying to do at the moment, because like I said, I haven't had somebody come up and say, hey, like you need to be a teacher or something like that. I think I still got plenty to learn. So
What was your? How was you prayed to Jesus or something? And he answered. How did that happen?
so just I wasn't a good person, like I just came to the conclusion that, most of my problems are probably my own fault. Like I was a fry, I'm waking up in the pig pen. And
And you prayed to him, or
I
or you, or
yeah,
I
I
mean, like a
don't
one time deal, or
uh yeah, I would say this is like a one-time deal. I mean, like I was probably like crying out in my heart, a lot, like leading up to this. Like I was just contemplating, ending my life, and just, thinking about everything in life, and existential crisis, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but so yeah, I don't know. I'd probably watched a couple of new tutorial videos, but how it happened was my grandpa's sister was wanting to research the priestly breastplate and the 12 stones. And she's like a Pentecostal word of faith, and she's my grandpa's sister. So she was old, or she is old. So I didn't figure she knew how to work a computer, much less the internet. And so I did some pre-research before she actually got here. And I was just looking around on Wikipedia, but in looking up Israel and the 12 stones and all that, it took me to some really wild places, even just on
Yeah,
Wikipedia. And so,
I believe it.
I had kind of like I had watched Kent Hovind in high school and middle school and stuff. And so I wasn't necessarily like set on creation, even though I took, basically every math class I could or math and science class I could in school. But I could, I just, it really bothered me whenever I went to church and I was actively like trying to learn and I couldn't. And it was even weirder because I remember getting there and I was super excited to have my Bible. And, like they're reading in the New Testament. And I'm like, no, like that's like the last quarter of the book. I've got some catching up to do. But I read fast, like I have no problem. So, you know, stupid me, I think that you can just, start the book in the beginning. So I'm like reading Genesis while they're, pastor's telling his story about fishing or whatever that has nothing to do with the verses that he read. But anyways, so I'm like reading along, and then they're like, "Oh, you don't want to start in the beginning. Like that's just for the Jews. Like we're like, Jesus has come, so we're just in the New Testament now." And so I'm thinking to myself, like, so I've got this book that I don't start in the beginning. I I don't know, like I'm just thinking to myself, like I don't know how this works out where you can not start a book in the beginning. But anyway, so I'm like, all right, I'll start over in like John or whatever they told me to start in. And then I think it got to the point where the preacher was actually going over the verses. And so I managed to find it really quick in my Bible. And then um, by the time he got done reading that one or two verses, I had already read the whole chapter. And I didn't have, a whole lot of biblical knowledge, but from my reading comprehension, the Bible was saying the opposite of whatever the dude on the stage just said. And so I kind of like pointed it out to the people that I was there with. And then they were like, oh, that's Paul. And you basically have to go to seminary to understand him. And he wrote basically the entire New Testament. So literally like the first time of me going to church, I'm sitting there thinking, why in the hell do I even have this thing? The first three quarters of this giant book are only to the Jews, but for some reason I'm lugging it around. And then of the remaining one quarter of this giant book, Paul wrote 85% of it, and you have to go to seminary to understand it. So, like, why do I even have it? Like if I have to get all of my answers from the pastor, like, why am I reading this thing? So I was just super confused. None of it made any sense to me. And then on top of that, I couldn't remember anything that I read or, heard about or whatever. And so that was super frustrating. And so I'd say I kind of like fell away for a bit. And then I watched the Zeitgeist thing, and that really threw me for a loop. And so I tried talking to a couple of different pastors about it. And I don't know if it's just me or what, but they just kind of like, I don't know if they didn't know how to answer the question or if they were just blowing me off, but they're basically like, oh, I'll just read this article. And the article doesn't answer any of my questions, And so I'm just left like, okay, I'm trying to have a real conversation with this pastor. They don't want to have a real conversation with me. Now I don't know what to do. And then, fast forward to me ruining my life.
Yep.
And then my aunt was like, yeah, I want to check out, the priestly breastplate. So I started researching that. And I came across God Rules YouTube channel, and he had copied one of Zachary Bauer's or Nutu Torah's videos called What I Used to Study. And so I was like, oh, like this guy's a Bible channel and he's got a video of what I used to study. I might as well check that out. And so I listened to him talk, and just my ears heard truth whenever he was talking. You know,
Sweet.
I could just tell that this wasn't some guy that went to school and got told the answer and,
Mm-hmm.
what to think. Like this guy had done the research, and actually he knows what he's talking about. He's he's made real lemon juice before. He's not just, giving me something out of a packet or lemonade, sorry. But so yeah, and then at this point it was just like I was very highly interested, but I didn't know what it was that he was like talking about. And you know, I was doing I was doing the research for my aunt on the priestly breastplate, and my wife was talking to her son about I don't know if it was science or evolution or what it was, but I was like, oh, you need to watch some Kent Hovind. And she's like, what? And I was like, Dr. Dino? You never heard Dr. Dino? Like apparently I was just some weird kid that, he knew a pastor's kid that had like the whole box set of Kent Hovind on VHS, so so I put her watching Kent Hovind, and she was like making dinner in the house, and I was out on the porch, and I was listening to a different video. And whenever I walked inside, it was like the middle of Kent Hovind's seminar or whatever, and he was like, it's his house, and he makes the rules, and you might want to figure out what they are. And it was just like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, that's the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. Like the most obvious thing
Exact.
anyone, like just literally just Captain Obvious just waltzed through the door and was like ding 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 ding. And so then I like really got interested, and but then I didn't understand, and so I was just like praying, like I don't know who to listen to, I don't know what version of the Bible to have, like Father, like if you want me to learn, you're gonna have to teach me, like you're gonna have to show me where to go, and you're gonna have to teach me, because I've done this before. I don't want to get into this hypocristianese stuff, you know and so yeah, he basically was like, start in the beginning. And I was like, and
But
then
they
that was
told me
whenever,
not to.
right. Yeah, and so that was whenever I figured out that you could search oldest and newest on YouTube. And so yeah, once I figured out Zach's story on how he came into the Hebrew roots, I was like, another light bulb went off, and it was just like so obvious. And I was able to reconcile, the Old versus the New Testament, and Jesus versus the angry, scary God of the Old Testament, and zeitgeist and all of that good stuff. And it was literally just like you get this one piece of information, and a majority of your puzzle is put together. It was just like that one piece that you're looking for, so you can connect all these giant parts into like one big picture, if you will. And then once you've got that sort of like the outline of the puzzle and the outline of most of the general shapes, you're just like filling in details here and there. It's so much easier to read through your Bible and know what's going on, or at least that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, no, it really makes a big difference. You can read pretty much anything, and like we were talking earlier, there's a bunch of verses people throw at us, and you can memorize the answers. Oh, he's talking about this. But if you just know what you've read over and over, you can answer pretty much any question that gets thrown at you.
Right, yeah. If you know the law, Exodus through Deuteronomy, like you're gonna have a pretty good idea of how to answer most questions.
And you'll
Even
probably
verses
be
that you've
humble enough.
Yeah, and even verses that you've never heard of before, because whenever they read it to you or you read it, you're gonna know the law whenever you get there.
Exactly.
So, anyways, yeah, it's just I don't know. It's a very humbling experience, you know.
But you got down to the low part or whatever, and kind of asked him, and he said, and the answer that you got from him was to start at the beginning. Was that all there was? I think I cut you off. There was. I
Um,
think.
you know, at first I was, you know, basically like praying for salvation. You know, I would say like repenting and doing that. And then I was, you know, and then I found Zachary Bauer and I was like, this is, you know, really interesting, but I haven't heard enough of it.
Isn't he a
Uh,
good teacher? He's funny.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I know some people are going to say he's really prideful now. Maybe he always was. I don't know. I do enjoy his zealousness, I guess is maybe the better word to use. But yeah, I can kind of see people's points about some of his recent videos. But yeah, Zach is hilarious, and I think he does take, you know, some things very seriously. Um, I've actually got to meet him a couple times, go to
Oh,
his
for
house.
real?
Uh, yeah, and so I don't know, like. I don't know him as well as other people do, so you know, like I'm not gonna say whether he is or he isn't. But yeah, like I learned a lot from that dude watching his old school videos. I started watching him like right before he moved from St. Louis. And then of course Jim Staley, 119 Ministries.
119
Um,
Ministries. Yeah, yeah.
yep. Yeah, I started watching them before they moved to Costa Rica and
They're in
before
Costa
Steve.
Rica.
Yeah, yeah, they went. Well, they moved from St. Louis to Costa Rica, and then they lived in Costa Rica for a couple of years, and then they moved back.
What's in Costa Rica, man? Rude used to go there. He found a wife. He found his wife there.
It used to be really cheap to live there. Like, you know, you still use American dollars, and it's still like an American country, but
Oh,
it just the cost of living was much cheaper. You know, so it didn't cost them as much money to do ministry full time, would be my guess. And then, you know, you just get to. I'm assuming it's not like a Christian country or something, so they're trying to convert people, would be my guess. But yeah, I just know that it used to be a whole lot cheaper, and then they ended up moving back because the cost of living just kept getting higher and higher. And then they were like, well, you know, if it cost us this much money to live here, we might as well just be at home, you know, with all of our friends and family. And then I guess the locals weren't very nice to him either. But yeah. So yeah, I go to Steve Mutria's Sukkot. Um, I got to meet Rob Skiba for like I don't know 5 minutes one time at a conference.
oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Um, yeah, but yeah, like you said, with the stages of Hebrew roots, there's they either go, you know, like way too far to the Jewish side and start doing like all of the extra stuff, and then yeah, they can go, you know, like completely reject it and go into once saved, always saved. I don't have to do anything, you know, free grace sort of stuff, and then. Like you said, some of them, you know, get way too into it and they end up in like new age or philosophy or something like that, or they end up questioning Paul, they reject Paul, then they reject Luke and then eventually Jesus in the whole New Testament, and they end up in, you know, either like straight Judaism or, you know, just not being a believer at all. So yeah, I've seen quite a bit of that.
Did you or your family or anybody close or anything, does anybody get into flat Earth?
That's yeah, that's kind of how I ended up finding God Rules channel. I was I was just a conspiracy researcher before, just something to entertain myself with, and because I like reading and whatnot. Uh, but I was scrolling through Facebook one day, and the post just said concave Earth, glass sky, and it was so weird that I just had to look it up. And then whenever I did, the guy presenting it was like somebody who thought that they were Jesus, and I mean, they were brilliant. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, the guy probably was a genius, and he knew how to use 3D animation like super well. So his videos were really good, but the dude that was presenting it was just so like just dripping arrogance, and I just could not stand to listen to the guy. But God Rules like watched all of his videos and then just gave his own version of the dude's videos. So I was watching God Rules and thinking about the shape of the earth. And so whenever I heard Kent Hovind say it's his house, he makes the rules, it was just like bing. So yeah, that's actually kind of like how it all came together. And I don't know. I guess I'm fairly certain that we don't live on a ball earth. I'm not going to say that it's flat, but I think we can see way too far for it to be a ball, and NASA lies. So I don't know.
See, you can see way too far. What do you mean? Oh, like the horizon, the
Yeah. Like
yeah.
my buddies have internet companies, and they have wireless links, point A to point B, and it's literally like line of sight, like there can't be anything in the way. And the only thing you have to put in is altitude. You don't have to figure a curve of the earth. And so if you do try to factor in the curve of the earth, you'll notice that like the, place where you're trying to get to should be hidden by like 200 feet of earth curvature. And it's like, okay, well, this laser beam communication device is definitely not shooting through, solid earth. So yeah, like we can just see too far.
Yeah, I think they had that with radar too in the beginning.
Yeah, that's another thing, like how does radar wrap around the ball? It doesn't, you know, yeah. And then yeah, like the horizon always rising to eye level. Like that shouldn't happen on a ball ever. So I don't know. But anyways, I don't care what shape the Earth is. It doesn't matter. I know NASA lies, and it's not what they show us. They wouldn't be faking it and showing us CGI if they actually knew what it looked like. But I know that the
Yeah.
flat Earth model does have a lot of problems too. So I'm not going to pretend like I know the answers, but I definitely think that we're living in God's house, though. That is for certain.
Yeah, it's not far off that you got to go send somebody to go get it. It's right here.
Yep, that's so great. That's what we were looking at earlier.
And then I was talking to a guy, and for the longest time, I didn't know he believed this. He thought that when we died, we became angels. Do you think that?
No, no, not at all. I think we go to sleep and then we wait for the resurrection, just like
Yeah.
everybody else.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
kind of shocking.
like yeah, like when Paul says, if I'm absent in the body, then I'm present in Christ. Like, yeah, because when you die, you go to sleep, and then you don't wake up until Christ wakes you up. Like whenever you fall asleep, you don't know how long you slept for.
Oh, check this
You
out.
know what I
I'm
mean?
sorry to
Like, no, no,
I
go
just,
ahead.
well, no, I just thought you're a person that knows Torah, so you might understand this. But how can a man get defiled? Can a man poop on himself and get defiled? Can he pee on himself? Can he vomit on himself? Can he, do that other thing on himself and get defiled?
What
Are there
what do you mean?
are there body excrements that will defile a man?
Uh, as like off the top of my head, I would say no, you would just be unclean.
Oh,
But
right. That's what I meant. But oh, yeah.
right,
So,
but
uh
maybe if you purposely sleep with her wife during Nida, I think it says that if you get the blood on you, you shall be cut off. So I mean, like,
correct.
I think you could say that's defiled. Yeah.
Right. So that's what comes out of somebody else that could defile you. But what comes out of you that could defile you? It's your little swimmers specifically, right?
Okay.
Well, I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
law, if you
Well,
know,
I thought it was just unclean though. So
well,
yeah,
okay,
you're
yeah,
gonna. I'm not following. I'm sorry.
no, yeah. Let's not get hung up on the unclean thing. It's so yeah. Let's just say it does make you unclean until you wash and then eat by evening time you will be clean. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But we both know what I'm talking about. Our little swimmers
Yeah.
can defile us or make us unclean or whatever until evening until we wash.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, when the Pharisees are telling Jesus, you need to wash your hands, he says to them, it's not what goes into a man's mouth that defiles him, it's what comes out of his body. Now, think about that. What comes out of a man's body that defiles him? That's our little swimmers.
Yeah.
Jesus is making a joke to these people. He's slamming them. It's not what goes into your mouth, it's what comes out of you, a man's body, that defiles him, meaning they were defiled essentially, right? By that.
Oh,
Yeah, isn't
okay.
that isn't that
Nice.
that's a
Okay.
slam. It's like, dude, man, you guys, it's like a way of really putting them down. It's
All right.
but only a Torah observant guy could catch on to what I'm talking about.
Right.
So, but
Yeah. No. No. I don't. Yeah. I definitely wouldn't
well, he
have
doesn't
caught
say
that. But
it's not. He
he
doesn't say so.
totally, he totally could have been calling him out on it though.
Yeah, because then he explains to the people. He says, "Well, it's what comes out of their mouth."
Yeah. Because
Where
they were saying that eating food with unwashed hands would make you defiled or something like that.
right, and
Yeah,
his
no, yeah,
response
that's
wasn't.
so great.
It's
I
not
don't know how I never put that
because he
together
doesn't say
before.
it's what comes out of your mouth. He says it's what comes out of the body, and it's like,
Yeah,
ooh, I know what he's talking about. Oh my God, he's slamming these
right.
guys.
Yeah, he probably is. Like yeah, for all we know, they probably just got done visiting somebody with negotiable virtues.
Yeah, what was
I don't
that?
know, but
Arthur Bailey was talking one time how
that's great. I
he
never would
says
have never
some
would have
friends
caught
will
that.
come up to him for church and they'll be like, "Hey man, me and my wife just got done, and he's like, "Don't even touch me. Why are you telling me this? Don't even touch me." And that's what made me think about it. But yeah, he does explain it in a couple sentences later, and then like many sentences later, he explains it twice. It's what comes out of a man's mouth and what he is speaking. I mean,
Right.
he makes it clear, but at the very first, he tells them right
Yeah.
away, it's what comes out
Yeah.
of the body. Oh man,
Mm-hmm.
that was good.
Yep, but what comes out of him? That is very interesting. Oh, look at that. It even takes us back. Oh, I was gonna say, no, that's a Leviticus 11. That's gonna be food laws. I thought it was gonna take us back to where we just were. That is freaking, yeah, I can't believe I hadn't put that together before. That's amazing. Yeah. I bet their
Well,
face got red whenever he said that, and then he just
I wouldn't teach that in
continued right
Sunday.
on.
I wouldn't teach that
Right.
to this kids in Sunday school, but it is a mental
Yeah.
note.
Oh, did you hear my Ezekiel 4 joke the other night when I was on
No, let's
Ryan's
hear it.
show?
Do it.
So, it's talking, he's got to cook the bread on human dung, and he's like, "Oh
Yeah.
no, I haven't never eaten anything unclean." He's like, "All right, you can cook it on cow dung." And it's supposed to symbolize the defiled bread they're going to eat amongst the nations. And so it just goes to show you that people can read their Bible every day and still be full of cow dung.
Wow.
So yeah.
Or Paul talking about the circumcision. If your member affects, offends you, you cut it off. So when these guys are telling you to get circumcised, yeah, maybe they should get circumcised.
Yeah. Or just the stuff that gets taught in churches today. It's not bread. It's not in the Bible at all. It's just some guy up there telling a life story that may or may not be true.
And he's got a boss. If he preaches something against what his boss told him to preach, they'll lose their job.
Right. Yeah. I think you are right, Chris. It definitely is your actions and your thoughts, but I think there's always like a literal and a spiritual meaning. So I don't think either one of us would disagree with you. I think he was just pointing out the more literal meaning, I guess. But yeah, it was definitely a hard issue. I mean, these guys were obviously just trying to cause some trouble. Okay, so yeah, it says defiled, but it does mean unclean. Gotcha. Checks out. It's good stuff, though, man. It's good stuff. And yeah, anything that is not in Leviticus 11 is not considered food. So all foods are clean because the stuff that you're not supposed to eat isn't food.
Good point. Good point.
uh, and then so if you start in Matthew 1 and count back 12 verses, you end up at Malachi 3:13, and it like is the most perfect description of today.
Your words have been strong against me, said Jehovah, but you have said, what have we spoken against you? You have said, is it worthless to serve Elohim? And what did we gain when we guarded his charge and when we walked as mourners before Jehovah of hosts? And now we are calling the proud blessed. Not only are the doers of wrongness built up, but they also try Elohim and escape.
Like
What?
pulpits today, like imagine all of the preachers and the word of faith and the what do they call that, prosperity gospel, like,
Soothing sayings.
yeah, I mean, like that is. But anyways, and then yeah, the people who fear him, they're gonna be his treasured possession, and one day we're gonna see the difference between the righteous and the wrong, between the one who serves God and the one who does not. And it's gonna burn like a furnace, and all the proud and the wrongdoers are gonna be stubble, and they're gonna be ashes under the soles of our feet. And of course, remember the Torah of Moshe. But then they're like, oh, but John the Baptist already came. And it's like, yeah, John the Baptist shows up before that day comes. So that means we're even closer to this day than you think. So yeah.
So does he have to come again, John the Baptist, or he wouldn't?
No. I wouldn't say that he has to come again. I'm just saying, it says that John, Eliyahu the prophet would come before the great day. So if this guy or if this verse has already happened, then this day can't be very far off, or at least that would be my question.
Yeah, I think
So
time.
yeah. But
Remember the
anyways, it's just wild that you can count back 12 verses and get a perfect description of today's church. And I mean that broadly, as in like, Hebrew roots, SDA, Sunday church, I mean, yeah.
anybody, right?
Yeah, literally anybody. There's proud people and wrongdoers everywhere that try God and escape. So yeah, this is another one of those that I take pretty literal. I don't know how we can, you know, get around this. But anyways, I've
Oh,
always
go ahead.
pondered on this Son of Righteousness. Like that is always interesting or interested me. I've never had like a, oh, this is definitely what it means.
So what the heck's the Son of Righteousness if it's spelled with a U?
Right? And it actually is like SUN. It's not just like a King James mistranslation. So the only thing I've got is the sun
Oh, burn! He's gonna
was
burn them up.
right.
Sorry.
So the sun was actually created on day 4, and the sun did show up in the 4,000th year, or which would be the 4th day, which is also in the middle of the week. Um, so yeah, I it it could be that yeah, I don't know. That's all I got. I don't know what the meaning is, but I know
No, he's
that
not like Jamie, making the days into. No, it sounds logical.
yeah. The wings thing, I think that's kind of like a description, like because he says that you know I would have gathered you like a hen gathers its chicks under her wings, or whenever he's talking about the first Exodus, I brought you out underneath my wing or something like that. Uh, and it's kind of tied to the pillar of fire and pillar of smoke. That's not actually the same thing. It would be clouds or something like that, but he uses the wings to describe figuratively the literal pillar of fire and smoke.
Now, do you see those as missile launches? The pillars of smoke.
Um, so I could see it a couple of different ways, like Zachary Bauer's thing with the 144,000, like literally being children. So I could literally see like 144 pillars of smoke and fire around the world. Because I want to say that he even did the math on it, where if you had that many spread across the land masses, you would basically, like anybody on Earth would be able to get to one relatively quickly, because I want to say they'd only be like 300 miles apart. So the furthest you'd have to travel is like 150 miles to get to one. Um, so, either way, I could see pillars of smoke and fire. And then if you're on like Zachary Bauer's page, or at least I think what page he's still on, is that the 144,000 are going to be like literal children, and they're going to be like the Moses that's at that pillar of smoke and fire that's going to lead that congregation. Because what more humbling experience could you get than a bunch of like pastors and theologians having to answer to a child? So I think that's a beautiful picture, although, I think that you also need to be like 20 or above to be a teacher. I honestly, it may even be 30. I can't remember. But anyway, um, or, it could just be a few pillars of smoke and fire, but I don't know exactly how that would work. I don't know. I tend to see it as a physical, literal exodus. So something along those
You're thinking
lines.
it's a good. You're thinking it's a good thing because it was a good thing in the wilderness
Well,
happening.
I mean, it still is the Great Tribulation, but, you know, we're at least with him, I guess. But I mean, he's still gonna make us pass underneath the rod and purge out the rebels and all that. So, like, I mean, I don't think it's gonna be easy by any means, but I'd much rather be there than in the world. But yeah, like I think that it's gonna be a literal thing. I guess.
Do you are your oh, I completely lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you what the heck if you guys believed in what? What the heck was I going to ask you again? Oh, do you or your family anybody um love any of the apocryphal books?
So we have read some of them, and I'm not like against any of them, I guess, for the most part. But I would rather know the 66 before I venture off too far, because I would get details mixed up, and I wouldn't know which one came from where. So my wife probably knows more of the apocryphal stuff, and then I know the actual. I'm not going to say the actual scriptures, but I know the 66 better than I know the other stuff. So whenever she says details that sound fuzzy to me, I can say, either that's incorrect or it may be in the Apocrypha and not in the actual scriptures. And then there's another friend that has read and knows a lot more about the apocryphal stuff. but personally, I don't know. But I'm not against it. Like I think that there could be some good stuff out there.
Yeah, there's like 54, I don't know, or more apocryphal books, but I like the ones the Catholics have in their book. None of them are really against, none of them really do anything funky for you.
Right.
Like Tobit or Judith or Baruch, Book of Wisdom. But boy, I tell you what, First and Second Maccabees, I really think that ought to
Oh,
be.
Bale and the Dragon. I love that one. It's short and sweet. You get to kind of see a different side of Daniel.
And then there was an extra paragraph of Daniel a second time that he's in the lion's den at an old age or something. I forget, but yeah, I like those kind of. But like the weird ones, I don't want to say weird, but the ones that were like Enoch and Jasher, the ones that we look at when we're like, dang man, what's going on? You know what I mean?
Right.
Those
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's some good stuff
Yeah, I would read those like you said, I would read those last. Like I would get a base on my Bible, and then look at those books. But the Catholic apocryphal ones, there's nothing really in there that would shake you up or get you mixed up or anything.
yeah. Um. Oh. I bought the Sefer. Like whenever, like I think I have one of like the first edition Sefers. I thought it
The
would
heck
be
that?
good just to have all of the books just in case.
What's a
Um,
sefer?
it's called the. I'll just type it in, but it's it's got like 87 books in it. Um, it's just the Hebrew name for the book or whatever, the holy book. But the F is the Aleph Tav that's left out like 7,000 times, and then Sefer is just book.
81.
But
It's
yeah,
got 87 sacred books. 81 are from the canonized 1611, and six are considered to be inspired. Interesting.
yeah, but it's got Enoch, Jasher, Jubilees. It's got the Maccabees, the Ezras, Bel and the Dragon, Ecclesiasticus, whatever that other wisdom book by Solomon is, the 29th chapter of Acts. Um, I don't know, but yeah, just to be able to have
Excellent equipment.
all of them in one book, I thought it would be good to have. But there's people that are like, oh, Stephen Pigeon doesn't know anything about it, and he's throwing in extra doctrine, and you know, so yeah, like I'm not using it for doctrine. I just wanted it to have all of the books like in a physical form, and they're all in one spot. So that was one of the reasons I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've never seen that. It looks interesting.
Yeah.
Expensive.
Yeah, it's like a good $100. But anyways, and then like he actually like spells out the names, and that's where he uses Yahuwah and Yahusha. Um, but and then like all the other ones like Isaiah's Yashayahu and stuff like that. But he like spells it out in the English instead of having to translate the Hebrew. I don't know, what is that, like restored names? Is that what that is? Whenever like it's not translated, but
I just saw it.
but anyways, yeah, it's kind of like easy to read, I guess. But it's a lot. If I remember, like the first edition, I think is a lot more like the King James with restored names, I guess. And then you've got the Olive Tav in there, like he puts the Olive Tav in back and the names. It's
Yeah,
like
because the olive.
the Olive Tav was taken out like 7,000 times, and the name was taken out like 6,000 or something.
Well, it's genius that it's a direct object identifier, and that's what Jesus called himself. And if we think he's a direct object identifier of the Father, yeah, of
Right.
course he's going to be the Aleph
Yeah.
Tav. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's like I thought it was in there like 11,000 times. I didn't know they.
Yeah, but then you get into like, is Jesus a created being, and then people calling you blasphemous and heretic and all that good stuff. So
Well, yeah. How do you
I can
deal with the
see
Trinity?
what?
How do you deal with the Trinity? What do you do with the? From my understanding, most Hebrew roots are like they
Right.
understand the Father and the Son are separate.
Right. Oh, man, that is I don't think I can answer that. I know I can't answer it, but I can tell you like why I don't think I can answer it. So I can see, like I've had people explain it to me like the the world is real, but it's more of a simulation, like a computer simulation. And then Jesus is just a creation inside of the simulation that the Father uses, like he controls it and, types in all of the words and all that stuff. And so, since the Father would be outside of the computer, Jesus could say that the Father is greater than I. And, but they still are the same person. So I could see it that way, or I could see it as, the Father is literally greater than the Son, and they are two completely separate beings. And then the Holy Spirit could just be like a divine nature, like if I raise up my daughter to have all of my beliefs and, how she should do things, then, she would have my spirit, if you will. So, I could see it as just one God. I could see it as two gods, or I could see it as three gods. Like the Holy Spirit could be its own person. So, and I think you could argue for either one. But all I know is that whenever it says that God is one, it says one, but it's using akkad, which is the plural form of one. So I don't know how to answer that question. And I think that you could have countless debates on it. I don't know. Maybe you can help me out though.
I'd like to since you brought up that I can't even say it Echad. Yeah, it's ECHAD, and it's like,
Yeah.
can I just say
You
Echad?
got to get the phlegm in there.
Can I just say Echad?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that sometime. But I got a prayer. My morning prayer started. I gotta hit up my corporate morning prayer. I don't know if you know Paul Nassan. Every morning.
Yeah, the health watchman.
Yeah. He does a morning prayer at 5 o'clock every morning, and it's just a
Okay.
reading. It's a reading. It's not. I mean, there's live chat, but you don't chat. You kind of say, "Hey, I want to pray for this," or "I want to pray for that."
Okay.
It's a, we understand that you're supposed to go into your closet to pray and this and that, but no, there's also corporate prayer. There's also, well, I don't want to say there's chanting, but anyway, this is corporate prayer. This isn't like we're all going to get in a group and pray. I don't know. It's hard to explain. He reads for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. He reads.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how we do it. So don't get confused when I say morning prayer. But no, he just started up his morning prayer. But no, I'd like to talk to you sometime about that at Ichad.
Yeah. Yep. Well, anytime, man. Like, you got my email. If I don't know if you got Discord or something, I don't know. I can shoot you my contact details. Get a hold of me anytime. We'll fire up the live stream and go at it. I love
Yeah,
doing this, man.
yeah,
Like,
because I've
like
only got
Ryan's
live.
show the other night, it was a 12-hour show and then like a 6 or 7 hour show, and I was there for most, like, I would say at least 90% of it.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
I
that was
love
like
them.
the 18 hours nonstop. Like, I mean,
Oh
that
yeah.
was great. It was so much
Oh, that
fun.
was beautiful. I cannot believe it. I love doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I
no,
know
if
how
it's a
I know how you feel when you don't have a congregation to like meet with. You got to get that brotherly love and spiritual rejuvenation where you can.
yeah, and it's so rare to find. You'll be sitting there battling Ryan and I don't know OSA, SDA, or you used to be sitting there battling them all night, and then
Right.
finally somebody will come on and say, "Hey, I like Torah," and you're like, "My brother."
I know it, right?
Uh,
So
but no,
yeah,
no. So what's your name? Your first what?
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Yep. So I am kind of a Yahoo, but not specifically a Yahoo. It'd have to be like Jeremiah. So I'm close, but yeah, I
And if
just
you are you
like
on the
Yahoo.
are you where what part of what Ozarks are you? Missouri or Arkansas?
Yeah, South Central Missouri.
South Central, and that's the is that the major lake of the Ozarks, the Bagnell Dam Lake of the
Hmm.
Ozarks?
Yep.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I'll be down there in a couple weeks to be. Do you have a boat for me? I'm gonna go water skiing on your lake.
You're gonna go
Uh,
water skiing this time of
oh
the
yeah,
year?
oh yeah, oh yeah. If you're my new friend and you live and you've got a boat to water ski on the Lake of the Ozarks, I'm gonna go down there and go water skiing as soon as I can.
I don't have a boat, but
Well, we're
I'm
halfway
yeah,
there. We'll
right.
work on. You try
Yeah.
hitting the lottery and getting me a boat, and
Right. Yep.
I'll get my prayers answered to get to get down there and water ski. Yeah, but no, I miss Lake of the Ozarks water skiing.
Yeah. It's a good time. I worked there for 2 summers. It was interesting.
Well, I think they've built it up. The last time I was there was like 1976. I think they've built it up since then.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah, we actually did one of our Sukkots there. We just rented out somebody's cabin in the off season, or well, it wasn't a cabin. It was a pretty good sized place, but yeah, just rented out a oh, I forget what it is. VRBO, Vacation Rentals by Owner. Yeah, VRBO.
Oh,
Did a Feast of Tabernacles there. A couple families. I'm interrupting Paul Neeson. You should go do that and get back to me, or if you're gonna come back, I'll leave the stream on and you can just come back, or email me anytime. It doesn't matter. I'll get with you.
yeah. And you do have my. I know you sent me email. Yeah, I've got your email. Oh, that's what I was going to say. My phone. So yeah, this phone. I don't have phone service. I've only got Wi-Fi that some guy paid for. Whatever. So yeah, it would be best to StreamYard or chat in like a live chat room. But I wouldn't be
Yep.
able to like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no problem.
Nice meeting you, Jeremy. Have a good day, brother.
Yep. Don't have a bad one. Shalom, shalom.
Okay. Bye bye.